border to border, coast to coast. It's time to cue the talent and meet our host. It's a podcast by George. All right, folks, it's showtime.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Well, as I oftentimes say, the reason that I started this podcast was so that I could put forward issues that are very near and dear to my heart that I think are important that just aren't getting the exposure. They're just not seeing the light of day like they should. And nursing homes, it's at the top of the list, folks. Maybe it's because I'm getting to be that age, but it's also the boomer generation. We're all getting to be that age. We're all going to be candidates for residency here very soon. And it's something that affects so many. I know every single person virtually watching my show has someone, a relative or a friend, that's in a nursing home. It's always amazed me that it hasn't risen more to the forefront of the American psyche than it has. And, as an example is mask mandates. Everybody's running around. Hell, masks don't hurt anybody. There are people frothing at the mouth and rolling on the ground at city council meetings and school board meetings all around the country about mask mandates. And gun nuts also are Second Amendment right crazy. They're just running around. Nobody's ever been denied a gun in this country, hardly. And certainly every gun nut that ever wanted to shoot somebody's had an opportunity to do it. I do not understand why the Second Amendment issue is so prevalent in American society. We literally have more guns than people. But that's my left-wing rant on that. We'll get to that another day. We killed 1 million people in the Middle East. We were spending $300 million a day in Afghanistan for 20 years, and nobody talked about it. The major television networks literally devoted 5 minutes a year on Afghanistan coverage, and we were there for 20 years. All right, well, that's my beginning. It's nursing homes today. That's what I want to talk about. I saw an article that really struck home. I mean, I thought I just got to get this on the show. And joining us today is John Hale. John and his wife, Terry, own the Hale Group, an Ankeny-based advocacy and communication firm focused on older Iowans with disabilities, and the caregivers who support them. So let's welcome him into a podcast by George. John, welcome to the PBG.
George, good morning. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Well, thanks for joining us. And I want to bring this article up and give people an opportunity to see this, because it just doesn't get any better than this, because John and his wife, Terry, did a great thing here with this article. They put this huge issue that I mentioned in really personal terms, and that's what gets to people. That's what got to me. It reads, "She died trying to improve the nursing home she lived in." And reads, "The nursing home failed her. State government failed her. We failed her. Sheila was a longtime resident of a nursing home in southeast Iowa. She died September 22nd, 2021 from complications of COVID-19 at the age of 68. John and Terry write, "We never met her in person. We knew her only through phone calls, dozens of them, all on the same topic. Her concerns about the inadequate care and other residents of the facility were receiving." Okay, so that's enough to get us started there. John, tell us a little bit more about Sheila, and particularly how she fits into this larger issue that I mentioned.
Well, I tell you, we hated to have to write that column.
Yeah.
There are columns that you enjoy writing, and there are columns that you don't enjoy writing, and that was certainly one of them. Sheila was a person that had contacted us back in 2017. When we all have stereotypes about the typical person that's a resident of a nursing home. They're, sitting in a chair all day. They're not very communicative. They're not in touch with the real world. And that's an unfair stereotype. I mean, Sheila was smart as they come. She was articulate. She knew everything that was going on with her and everything that was going on with others in her facility. And she was, as we said in the article, she was an agitator in the positive sense of that word.
Yeah.
She would not be content with just what she had. She had expectations that she wanted to see met for the care that she was receiving and for other residents. And she was willing to advocate for herself and for others. And she was a thorn in the side, quite frankly, to the nursing home that she lived in. She would report unsatisfactory care and services to state agencies like the Department of Inspections and Appeals, which has the responsibility for surveying nursing homes and to see what's going on. She would talk to the Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman and other office of state government, and she would be a frequent caller to them. Yeah. And she just wasn't making this stuff up. She was talking about real things that were happening or not happening to her, to other residents, and she wanted to see care get better. Totally reasonable expectation. And so we have worked with her for over 4 years. We went to bat for her. We talked to all these agencies. We talked to everybody and their brother that would listen to us. We talked to media inside of Iowa and media outside of Iowa. I remember setting up an interview with her with somebody from the Washington Post who never wrote about it, but I know he was very interested in it. So it's just one of those things that was the classic illustration of what needs to be done to improve nursing homes, and to put it, as you said, George, in a personal context. You know, we can write about stuff forever, but if it's public policy stuff, if it's theoretical stuff, if it's budget stuff, you know, people just aren't going to really pay that much attention to it. But when it's about a person, a person's life, a person's situation, a person's feelings, a person's needs, then they get interested in it. And we've had a big response to this article. That's going to be running in some other places. We're talking to a nursing home trade publication that goes nationwide about this. So, you know, our desire was to use Sheila's life and, quite frankly, her death as an opportunity to get what she wanted, and that was to have care improved.
My God. And I mean, it pulls at the heartstrings, folks, because as John mentioned, this is somebody that was helping others that maybe couldn't help themselves, and then they succumbed to COVID. And of course, COVID right now is an integral issue with these nursing homes. We had Dr. Hurst on. He's the he's very active in this.
Great guy.
Yeah, in the nursing home area. I'm going to bring this up before we leave. Here, this second page of this article here, because I wanted to talk about this highlighted portion in particular. It reads, "In this and every subsequent conversation, Sheila gave examples of delayed or improper care that she and other residents were experiencing, and she identified the reasons for it. Too few staff to serve residents, staff inadequately trained, high turnover of staff, and high use of staff from temporary employment agencies, resulting in residents being served by people they didn't know or feel comfortable with, and failure of facility management to truly listen to residents and act on their own concerns." And of course, what a great list of things that Sheila was trying to get resolved. And anybody that's been in the nursing home setting that's had these friends and relatives, and I spent a lot of time in nursing homes, more than I would like to. We can attest to all of that. All of that stuff is true. It's ongoing. It continues to take place. And I guess top of the list for me, John, I've got a series of questions that I want to ask you, and maybe this will take the whole show. It's very open-ended. But given what I just mentioned, why are nursing homes so expensive? Everybody talks about the cost of being in a nursing home, and yet care is substandard so often. Why the dichotomy?
Well, when you think about and again, I'm not going to be a person who tries to justify the costs of care by nursing homes. But when you think about the business that they're running, and it's a business, you think about their business, they have a lot of money tied up in facilities and the grounds that they're on. They have a lot of money tied up in staff, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have, and that's where most of the money is at, quite frankly. And the sad thing, George, And the thing that we just have to deal with, have to solve as a problem is these staff members who are working 24/7, they're not making big money.
I know.
They are making, 12, $13 an hour, maybe start at 11. And that's why, particularly now, there's such a high amount of turnover in this field. Let's say that you're a person who has a calling, a passion to go in and help people in a nursing home.
I love you. Yeah.
And you're making 12 or $13 an hour. And in this economy, you find out, oh my God, I can work anywhere. I can make more money at the big box store. I can make more money in fast food. I can make more money at Casey's. I can make more money in lots of places and do work that is, quite frankly, not as challenging as this work is. I mean, working in a nursing home is a challenging place to be. You are dealing with people with physical challenges that you're trying to help. You are putting a physical toll on your body because you're lifting people all day. You're dealing with the emotions that come along with developing relationships with people. And what happens to these people? They die. And so it's emotionally draining work. It's physically challenging work. And many of the facilities are for-profit facilities. I mean, this is not a public service. Nursing home operators are not in the business of providing a public service to people. They're in the business of a business. And so there's profit involved here. And so there's a lot of reasons why the cost is as much as it is. And again, the resident is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You go out to a good hotel and you stay for a night and it might be a couple $100 a day or a couple $100 a night. A nursing home is probably going to be $250 to $300 a day, but you're there 24/7. You get a lot of services that come along with it. So that's not a rationalization for it. It's not a justification. It's simply trying to explain.
Well, and again, Medicare for All may play a role in this, and Dr. Glenn Hurst is a big proponent of that. And like I tell everybody, when I started, I was talking about these issues that nobody seems to care about. Another big issue, there's a survey, a study released just recently that says a third of all COVID-related deaths, and again, that's what claimed Sheila's life, may be due to a lack, or are due to a lack of access to proper health insurance, to Medicare for All, basically. That's 300,000 people in this country, folks, that could have been saved by Medicare for All. But again, that's a topic for another day. Well, I wanted to ask you, and you touched on it there, but Sheila started her advocacy years ago, pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, everybody's aware of the issues that we all were confronted with, and particularly these nursing home workers. Now the situation is trying to get people employed and coming back into the workplace. So it was bad. John, is it actually worse now than it was? I mean, that's maybe hard for me to believe, but where are we at?
Well, I think it's a really important point to make, George. These problems that we're talking about, these challenges of lack of consistent quality care in nursing homes, existed before COVID hit. Has COVID impacted it? You bet it has. Has COVID put a bright spotlight on these issues? Yes, it has. Has COVID made it worse? Yes, it has. For example, just from a workforce standpoint, it's harder to get people to go into the nursing home work field because, my God, 2,500 people have died in Iowa nursing homes in the past 18 months. It's a petri dish. It was prior to vaccines. It was a petri dish of every possible germ you could imagine. And so residents were being affected. Staff was being affected. A lot of staff left as a result of COVID and what they saw as being dangerous working conditions. Plus, they could go out and make more doing something else. So it's difficult to get people to stay in that field, and it's difficult for people to find people to go into that field just because of what's happening right now with COVID. And COVID has not gone away. COVID is still there. Clark Kaufman writes about this on a regular basis in the Capitol Dispatch online, and he's tracking every week the number of facilities that have an outbreak and what's going on and the death tolls. I mean, this problem is still there, and it's having a serious impact on the quality of care that's being provided.
Well, Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, it's such a huge issue. There's a lot of interconnection with other issues, and I've mentioned many of them, but also immigration. There are so many people that want to stem the tide of immigration. They don't want these people coming into our communities, but I'm thinking that the immigration population is going to play a big role in these nursing homes moving forwards. These are jobs that they can, and maybe most importantly, will do. God love them. And maybe it's because of their societies and their culture. They'll go in and help us. Do you see that as being a looming issue that also needs to be dealt with?
I do, George, and it's got an upside and it's got a downside. I don't mean to poo-poo the idea of immigrants being part of the solution to this problem, because they are. And you are right, they will work for $12, $13 an hour, and they will be happy to do it, and they will do good work. The problem is, and this is the downside, and this is my personal opinion, maybe not shared by others, but I have it because of personal experience. When you have someone working in a nursing home who doesn't speak the same language or doesn't speak it well as the person in that nursing home bed, it creates discomfort for the person in that nursing home bed. Mm. They want to be helped by somebody that they can build that relationship with. It's hard to build a relationship with somebody that you're challenged to understand. And so language can be a real barrier here, because the key thing about this world, George, is that this is customer service built on personal relationships. Every day you want to see that person walking in the door. You want to trust them. You want to know them. You want to have confidence that they know you. They're going to meet your needs, that they really care about you. And that becomes a little bit more difficult when you have a person that you can't communicate effectively with. So that's one of the issues that's part of this immigration issue. Do they serve as a possible labor pool to meet the needs? Yes, they do. Are there challenges that are going to come along with that? Yes, there is. Yes, there are.
Well, that's great. I guess I would say you can't you can't create people to do jobs that need to be done. If these folks are willing to do them, and God love them if they are, let's get them the help that they need to master the language. We can do that part of it. That could be part of the benefit of doing this type of work, to give them that education, that leg up on the language skills that they need to help these residents. Well, time gets away from us here. We tend to run out of time. I like to hold the recorded podcast by George to about 25 minutes or so, John. I guess one thing I really wanted from you was, based on your vast experience in this area, what advice do you give to people that themselves may be headed that way, or they have a friend, family member, somebody that's looking at becoming a resident? What do you suggest or counsel people to do?
Well, the advice we always give to people is plan ahead, prepare. Don't assume that you or your loved one is going to be one of those few people who pass away unexpectedly some night and never have to deal with the loss of independence as they age. You better prepare for it. You better have some conversations about it. You better figure out, how are we going to pay for this, first of all? And secondly, you want to have a conversation about, where do I want to be? Do I want to be in a nursing home, or do I want to have my needs met as long as we possibly can in my home, in my community, by having services brought in? Really important conversation, because a lot of people that are in nursing homes don't need to be in nursing homes if they could get the care provided in their homes. So preparation is key. If you do find yourself going, or a loved one is going to be in a nursing home, do some research, visit the place, talk to residents, talk to family members, use your eyes, use your ears, use your nose. What's it smell like? What's it look like? What's it feel like? If you don't have a good feeling about it, your loved one isn't going to have a good feeling about it. You're not going to get your expectations met. Preparation is key. There's a CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, online resource called Nursing Home Compare, where you can go in and punch in the nursing home that you're looking at, and it will give you some evaluative data about it and compare it and contrast it with others. It's a tool. It's not the best tool in the world, but it's all that we've got, quite frankly. You can go to the Department of Inspections and Appeals in Iowa and look at the survey results that they've had. They go to every facility typically once a year, once every 18 months. They file reports about what they see, what their findings are, if they have found significant problems. So research and preparation is absolutely key. If you wait for that loved one to go into a hospital and 3 days later they tell you, guess what? Your loved one has got to go to a nursing home and you haven't prepared for it and you're just suddenly reacting to zillions of things, you're going to be in real trouble. So preparation, research is absolutely essential.
Well, that's well said. That's great, John. And here at the close of the show, I always like to give folks like yourself an opportunity to tell people who should contact them and how to do so. What's the word on that?
Well, I and my wife are in this business because we want to help people. We had a website which has since been taken down because we're in the process of retooling it. If people want to know more about what we do, or they have a situation, in fact, just before I got on the air with you, I had a call from somebody concerned about their 95-year-old dad who's at a nursing facility in Altoona. So if people want to contact us, I'll just give you my email address for now, which is hale_johnd@msn.com. That's hale_john, JOHND as in David, at msn.com. And they can call us at 515-313-7766. That's 515-313-7766.
That's great. And I guess I would say, remember Sheila. I mean, this great article that you've written, and I'll put a link to that in the description below so that people can check that out as well, because that was just wonderful. John Hale and also Terry, who wasn't able to join us today, but both of you folks, thanks for doing this. And John, thanks for coming on this edition of Podcast by George.
Great. Let's do this again. We could talk for hours on end about all kinds of topics related to this.
Yes, we could, because it touches all of us. Yeah, that's right. Well, folks, that's John Hale. He and his wife, Terry, own the Hale Group. It's an Ankeny-based advocacy and communication firm focused on older Iowans with disabilities, and the caregivers who support them. And as always, I hope that you enjoyed this edition of Podcast by George. I hope you got something from it. And if you do, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and subscribe there. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like and a thumbs up, however that works on Facebook. And of course, the audio versions are available, and you can leave a comment on iTunes and give us a thumbs up there as well. We're also available on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, and really just about every place that podcasts are seen or heard. But that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.